What kind of ruler builds 8,000 soldiers just to guard his dead body? What kind of emperor forces 700,000 workers to build a tomb so massive it still hasn't been fully opened 2,200 years later? And what kind of man becomes so terrified of death that he drinks liquid mercury, believing it will make him immortal? This is the story of Qin Shi Huang, the man who unified China, the man who began building the early Great Wall of China, the ruler who tried to control history, control thought, and even defeat death itself. But the most powerful emperor in ancient China may have died because of his own desperate search for immortality. And his story begins with a dangerous secret about his birth. In 259 BC, during the violent Warring States period, China was not a single country. It was a battlefield. 7 powerful kingdoms fought constantly for dominance. One of those kingdoms was the rising western state of Qin. That same year, in the city of Handan, a boy named Ying Zheng was born. His official father was King Zhuangxiang of Qin. But there was a problem. At the time of the boy's birth, his father was not even in Qin. He was living as a political hostage in the rival kingdom of Zhao. The man responsible for helping the prince survive that dangerous situation was a powerful merchant named El Buwei. El Buwei was ambitious, intelligent, and extremely influential. Ancient historian Sima Qian later recorded a shocking rumor. Before giving her to the prince, El Buwei had a relationship with Ying Zheng's mother, Queen Dowager Zhao. Some historians believe the future emperor may actually have been El Buwei's son. If that rumor was true, the man who would one day rule all of China may not have been born a prince at all. But the young boy's greatest danger was not rumors about his birth. It was the deadly political world waiting for him inside the royal palace. In 247 BC, Ying Zheng's father suddenly died. The boy was only 13 years old. Yet, he became king of Qin. But the kingdom did not truly belong to him. Real power remained in the hands of El Buwei, who ruled as chancellor and regent. For years, the young king watched powerful adults control the throne that technically belonged to him, until a scandal inside the palace nearly destroyed the dynasty. The king's mother secretly began a relationship with a court official named Lao Ai. But Lao Ai was not simply a lover. He was plotting something far more dangerous. Together with the queen mother, he planned a coup. In 238 BC, the rebellion began. But Ying Zheng acted quickly. The revolt was crushed. Lao Ai was executed in one of the most brutal punishments in ancient China, torn apart by chariots. His entire family was exterminated. Thousands connected to the conspiracy were executed. Soon after, the king turned against the man who had once helped his father rise to power. El Buwei was removed from office and sent into exile. Not long after, he committed suicide. At just 22 years old, Ying Zheng had eliminated every major rival in the kingdom. Now the young king controlled Qin completely, and he had a far bigger ambition than simply ruling one kingdom. He wanted to conquer all of China. At the time, China was divided into 7 powerful states: Han, Zhao, Wei, Chu, Yan, Qi, and Qin. Each had powerful armies and centuries of history, but Ying Zheng believed there should only be one ruler. Beginning in 230 BC, Qin armies launched brutal campaigns across the region. The first kingdom to fall was Han. Soon after, Qin forces destroyed Zhao in 228 BC. In 227 BC, one of the most famous assassination attempts in ancient history nearly ended Qin Shi Huang's life. The state of Yan, desperate to stop Qin's growing power, sent a man named Jing Ke to the Qin court. He arrived carrying gifts for the king: a map of conquered territory and the severed head of a Qin general who had defected to Yan. The gifts were meant to gain the king's trust. As the map was slowly unrolled before the throne, something unexpected appeared. Hidden inside the scroll was a dagger. In a single moment, Jing Ke grabbed the blade and lunged toward the king. For a brief second, the future of China hung in the balance. But Qin Shi Huang managed to escape. The assassin was quickly surrounded by guards and killed inside the palace. After surviving the attempt, the king became even more paranoid. And soon after, Qin armies marched toward Yan. The kingdom that tried to assassinate him would soon disappear from the map. In 225 BC, engineers flooded the capital city of Wei, forcing surrender. But the greatest challenge came from the massive state of Chu. At first, Qin armies suffered defeat, but they returned with a far larger force. In 223 BC, Chu finally collapsed. Soon after, the states of Yan and Qi were conquered. By 221 BC, for the first time in history, China was unified. Ying Zheng then gave himself a new title, Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor.
The new emperor immediately began transforming the empire. He standardized writing, allowing people across different regions to communicate. He standardized currency, making trade easier. He standardized weights and measurements, creating a unified economy. Even the width of cart axles was standardized, so vehicles could travel smoothly on imperial roads. Massive road networks connected distant regions of the empire. He ordered the construction of new highways radiating from the capital, allowing imperial armies to move quickly across the empire whenever rebellions threatened stability. Messengers carrying government orders could travel faster than ever before, strengthening the emperor's control over distant provinces. But Qin Shi Huang also ruled with absolute authority. He followed the philosophy of legalism. Under legalism, strict laws and harsh punishments kept society under control. Criticizing the emperor could be extremely dangerous. In 213 BC, he ordered the destruction of many philosophical texts in the infamous event known as the burning of books and burying of scholars. In 212 BC, hundreds of scholars were reportedly executed. Meanwhile, threats from the north continued. Nomadic tribes such as the Xiongnu regularly raided Chinese territories. To defend the empire, Qin Shi Huang ordered massive fortifications. Existing regional walls were connected into what became the early version of the Great Wall of China. Hundreds of thousands of workers were forced into brutal labor. Many died during construction. But the emperor believed protecting the empire was worth any sacrifice. Yet despite ruling the largest empire China had ever seen, one fear continued to haunt him: death. As Qin Shi Huang grew older, his obsession with immortality became stronger. He sent expeditions searching for mythical islands where immortal beings supposedly lived. One of the most famous expeditions was led by Xu Fu. In 219 BC, Xu Fu sailed east with thousands of young men and women in search of the elixir of life. Ships disappeared beyond the horizon and they never returned. Meanwhile, court alchemists offered the emperor something else: special pills, promising eternal life. They told him the elixir contained rare minerals capable of granting immortality, but those pills contained a deadly ingredient: mercury. Even while searching for immortality, Qin Shi Huang was preparing for death. Construction of his tomb had begun in 246 BC, when he first became king. Over 700,000 workers labored for decades on the project. The result became one of the most extraordinary burial complexes in human history: the mausoleum of the first Qin emperor. Inside the complex stood thousands of clay soldiers known today as the Terracotta Army. Ancient texts even describe rivers of liquid mercury flowing through the tomb, representing the rivers and seas of China. Ironically, mercury would soon become the substance that killed the emperor himself. In 210 BC, Qin Shi Huang was traveling across his empire on an inspection tour. During the journey, he continued consuming the so-called elixir of life created by his alchemists. But the mercury inside those pills slowly poisoned him. Far from the capital, the most powerful man in China suddenly became gravely ill. Within days, the first emperor of China was dead. His advisors faced a terrifying problem. If the empire discovered the emperor had died, chaos might erupt immediately, so they hid the truth. The emperor's body was secretly transported back toward the capital. But as the corpse decomposed, the smell became unbearable. To hide it, officials placed wagons of rotting fish around the emperor's carriage. Meanwhile, palace officials manipulated the imperial succession. The rightful heir, Fusu, was forced to commit suicide. Another son was placed on the throne instead. The new emperor, Qin Shi, proved weak and easily manipulated by powerful officials like Zhao Gao. Soon rebellions erupted across the empire. In 209 BC, a revolt known as the Dazexian Uprising triggered widespread rebellion. Within only a few years, the Qin dynasty collapsed in 206 BC. The empire Qin Shi Huang had fought his entire life to build survived only 15 years. Yet his legacy did not disappear. The next dynasty, the Han dynasty, kept many of his reforms. The idea of a unified China survived, and even today, beneath a giant tomb mound near Shan, the first emperor of China still rests, guarded by an army of clay soldiers. The emperor who tried to conquer death now lies sealed inside a tomb no one has dared to open for more than 2,000 years.